We were sprawled on the living room floor of my loft apartment, surrounded by empty takeout containers and half-finished sketches scattered across the coffee table. It was a lazy Sunday evening, the kind where the city lights started flickering on outside the tall windows. I just finished showing Ethan the final mock-up for the new client pitch I'd been stressing over for weeks. He'd been my biggest cheerleader through the whole process, bringing me coffee at 2 a.m., listening to me ramble about color palettes, even helping me rearrange the slides at the last minute. I leaned over, brushed a quick kiss against his cheek, and said, "Thanks for sticking with me through this one. I love you." The words came out naturally, the way they always did after almost 3 years together. But he didn't answer right away. He set his phone down, muted the background playlist we'd had going, and shifted to face me fully. His expression was careful, almost gentle, and something in my chest tightened before he even spoke. "Ava," he said quietly, "I care about you a lot, you know that, but I've been thinking, and I don't think I'm in love with you anymore." The room felt suddenly too quiet. I searched his face for any sign he was joking, testing me, anything other than this calm certainty in his eyes. There was none. He wasn't angry, wasn't tearful, just stating a fact he'd apparently already processed, and I waited for the rest. The breakup speech, the apology, the awkward discussion about who keeps the apartment. Instead, he just watched me, patient, like he was waiting for my reaction to a minor schedule change. I swallowed, nodded once, and managed, "Okay, thank you for telling me." That was all. No questions, no pleading, no outburst. I gathered the sketches into a neat stack, stood up, and carried the takeout boxes to the kitchen. I could feel his gaze on me the entire time, but I didn't look back. I'm a project manager. My entire career revolves around timelines, risk assessment, clear communication, and contingency plans. Ambiguity drives me insane. So when he handed me this new data point, that the romantic component of our relationship had been unilaterally removed, I simply filed it and adjusted. He had redefined the parameters. I would operate within them. That night, I slept in the guest room for the first time since we'd moved in together. He didn't comment when he noticed the pillow and blanket missing from our bed. The next morning, I was up before him as usual. Normally, I'd start the fancy espresso machine he loved, steam milk for his latte, maybe leave a little note on the mug. Instead, I brewed a single pour-over for myself, rinsed the equipment, and left for the yoga studio before he stirred. When I got home that evening, he was at the dining table with his laptop. He glanced up and offered a small smile. "Hey, how was your day?" "Good," I answered, polite and light. "Busy but productive. Yours?" "Same." He hesitated like he expected more, but I just hung up my coat and headed to the kitchen to make dinner. For one, the first few days he seemed almost buoyant. He hummed while getting ready, lingered in the living room chatting about work, even suggested we watch that new documentary series together. I agreed, sat on the opposite end of the couch, and contributed neutral commentary when appropriate. No cuddling, no playful nudges, no inside jokes. He had declared we were no longer in love. Fine. Friends watch shows together. Colleagues discuss documentaries. I could do that. By the end of the week, the small absences began to register. I stopped restocking his favorite imported tea. I stopped moving his scattered guitar picks into the little dish on the shelf. When he left his damp towel on the bathroom floor, I stepped over it and hung only mine on the rack. On Thursday evening, he came into the bedroom while I was answering emails. "Hey, do you mind if I borrow your car tomorrow? Mine's due for an oil change and I've got that early meeting across town." I looked up, thoughtful. "Actually, I'm going to need it. I have a client lunch downtown and then errands after work. You could schedule an Uber, or there's a rental place 2 blocks over that has good daily rates." He blinked. "Oh, okay. No problem." It wasn't a problem for me. The woman who rearranged her entire day to chauffeur him around had been in love. The friendly cohabitant I'd apparently become had her own schedule. The following weekend, I went grocery shopping alone. I bought the ingredients for the meals I liked: fresh salmon, farro, the good berries that were finally in season. I skipped the artisanal crackers he adored, the craft beer he always requested, the expensive oat milk for his morning smoothies. When I unpacked, he wandered in and opened the fridge. "You went shopping?" "Yep." He stared for a moment at the neatly organized shelves. You didn't pick up any of my stuff. I shrugged, sliding a container of greens into the crisper. I just got what I needed this week. If you send me a list, I'm happy to grab a couple things next time, or you can order delivery. Whatever works. He didn't send a list. Money started to surface next. For years I'd quietly covered the streaming services, the high-speed internet upgrade, the cleaning service that came twice a month. It had never been a discussion. It just felt fair given our income difference and the hours I worked. Now, when the cleaning service invoice landed in my inbox, I forwarded it to him with a short note. Hi, splitting the bill going forward. Here's your half. Venmo works best for me. His reply was a simple thumbs-up emoji. His band had a gig coming up at a popular venue downtown. In the past, I'd have designed the promotional posters for free, spent evenings helping him rehearse set lists, even driven the equipment in my SUV. This time, when he mentioned the show date over breakfast, I nodded enthusiastically. That's great. You guys have been practicing hard. I'm sure it'll be packed. He waited. I was thinking, maybe you could help with the flyer again? Your designs always get way more shares. I smiled pleasantly. I'd love to, but I've got a big deadline that week. You should check out some of the freelance sites. There are tons of talented graphic people who specialize in band promo. I can send you a couple links if you want. He didn't ask for the links. The real shift showed on his face around week 3. The easy friendliness he'd worn like a victory lap began to crack. He started lingering near me in the kitchen, asking deeper questions about my day, trying to draw out the old warmth. I answered everything truthfully and cheerfully, but kept the emotional temperature exactly room level. One night he cooked pasta, his signature dish, and set 2 places at the table. Thought we could eat together, he said, almost shy. That's sweet, thank you, I replied. I already ate at the office, but I'll sit with you while you have dinner. I poured myself a glass of water and listened while he talked about rehearsal. I nodded in all the right places, laughed at his jokes, offered neutral encouragement. When he finished, I cleared only his plate, rinsed it, and wished him good night. His 30th birthday fell a month after the conversation. In previous years I'd orchestrated elaborate surprises, scavenger hunts around the city, private rooftop dinners, a custom engraved guitar he'd hinted at for ages. This year, I woke up, saw him scrolling on his phone, and said softly, "Happy birthday, Ethan. I hope it's a good one." Then I went for my run. When I got back, he was at the kitchen island, staring into a mug of coffee he'd clearly made himself. "So, any thoughts on tonight?" "Tonight?" I asked, wiping sweat from my brow. "My birthday. Oh, right. Do you have plans with the guys? I bet they're taking you out. If not, I'm happy to hang out, maybe order Thai and watch something low-key. Totally up to you." He studied me for a long moment. I guess I thought we'd do something special. I gave him the same gentle, sympathetic smile I'd give a coworker whose project got delayed. Special is for people who are in love, isn't it? We can absolutely celebrate as friends, though. Whatever you're comfortable with. He ended up spending the evening jamming with his bandmates at someone else's place. I worked late on a proposal, came home, and went to bed early. The financial reality hit harder than he expected. His music lessons and gig income were steady but modest. My salary had quietly subsidized a lifestyle he'd grown accustomed to. When his credit card statement arrived and he realized I'd removed myself as an authorized user, he came into the living room looking shaken. "My card got declined at the gear shop today." "That's rough," I said sincerely. "Did you call the bank? Sometimes they flag unusual purchases." Yeah. It's because you took yourself off the account." I nodded. "Right. Since we're not building a shared future anymore, it made sense to separate finances completely. You'll probably want to open your own cards with better rewards anyway." He didn't argue. Within days he was picking up extra students and cutting back on takeout. The lease on the loft was in my name alone, something he'd never thought twice about because I'd always handled rent and utilities. 6 weeks before renewal, the management company emailed the new terms. I printed the notice and left it on the counterpoint. One Friday evening, I came home from dinner with colleagues to find him sitting on the couch, the papers in his lap. The color had drained from his face. "Hey," he said, voice small. We should talk about the lease. Sure. I slipped off my shoes and sat in the armchair across from him. What's up? Are we renewing? I'm not planning to, I answered calmly. I've already put down a deposit on a smaller place in the East Village, closer to the new office we're opening. I move mid-next month. He stared. You're moving out? Our current living arrangement ends when the lease does, I said gently. I assumed you'd find something that fits your budget and location needs. There are some great roommate listings in the areas near the venues you play. You're really doing this. It wasn't a question. I'm respecting the boundary you set, I replied. You told me you weren't in love with me anymore. I heard you. I'm building my life accordingly. Tears welled in his eyes. I didn't mean I wanted everything to change like this. I thought we could just keep the good parts. The good parts were fueled by mutual romantic love, I said, voice steady but kind. You removed that variable. I'm simply letting the equation balance. He tried everything in those final weeks. Long conversations late at night, nostalgic playlists, cooking my favorite meals, even leaving little apologies scribbled on post-its. I responded with warmth and emotional availability appropriate for a dear friend. Gratitude, encouragement, zero intimacy. The night before my move, he sat on the edge of the guest bed I'd been using, head in his hands. I made a mistake, he whispered. I do love you. I was scared of how intense it felt, and I thought dialing it back would make things safer. But I miss you. I miss us. I looked at him for a long moment, feeling only a quiet sadness for what had been. I believe you're feeling that now, I said softly. But you taught me something important. Love isn't a dial you can turn down when it feels overwhelming and expect the other person to stay in place, supplying everything you still want. It's all or nothing, and you chose less. He didn't argue. The next morning, the movers arrived. I'd packed efficiently over weeks. My books, my art supplies, my clothes. His belongings remained untouched throughout the loft. As the last box was carried out, he stood by the door, eyes red that I paused, offered a small, genuine smile. Take care of yourself, Ethan. I truly wish you the best. Then I walked out into the bright morning, down the elevator, into the waiting truck. The city hummed around me, full of possibility, projects, new timelines I would design entirely for myself. He had wanted a life where the romance could be paused but the comfort remained. Instead, he got exactly what he described. A life with someone who cared, but was not in love. That I just never occurred to him that the person no longer in love might be me, stepping into a future he no longer had a place in.